panel. Again, DJ DivInc. Shout out to Howard University. Bison all day. We are now going to go ahead and get kicked off with our next set of panelists, the Tech Innovators panel. And this will be led by our moderator, Christopher Upperman, who will be joined by Preston James and Barry Gibbons. Gentlemen, if we could have you join us on the stage. Hey, Preston, another HU alum. Hey.
HU nice.
Just like the DJ.
That's it. Homecoming style.
Yeah. All right. You guys have a fantastic panel. I think we've got Chris joining us in a second. Chris, are you there?
I am here. I am here. She had to start my video. So, we're getting this started. It's good to see you. First, honestly, just want to thank you, Natalie. Your leadership as a woman, a Black woman in this space is just amazing. And we couldn't be prouder of you. And thank you, honestly, for bringing us together. I mean, real Black men coming together to have honest conversations, real conversations in this moment. This COVID reality is something that we have never experienced, but we're resilient. We persevere, and so this is a pivotal conversation. So look, I want to dive right in. We're gonna have a conversation today about tech innovators. I myself, I'm at a tech company now. I'm at Facebook, a manager in governance and strategic initiatives organization. Previously was in government. Previously was a CEO of a nonprofit that supports startups and entrepreneurs. And so this conversation is something that's really dear to me and something that really matters a lot to me. So I'm really excited to jump in. We got Preston James, the CEO and co-founder of DivInc, who's joined us. I'm really excited to have a conversation with you, brother. And we want to dive in. So with that, I want you to just actually give a really quick high level on something about yourself, so that the audience is aware of who you are.
Yeah, great to be here. Super excited. Great, good to see you, Natalie. I love you, sister. I love what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. So real quick, Preston James. I'm a native New Yorker, born and raised. I'm Howard University, Bison all the way. So I was in DC. I spent the vast majority of my career, IT technology, sales and consulting, a bulk of my career at Dell Technologies, global national technology leadership roles there. Took an early retirement in 2014 after I was bitten by the startup innovation bug, and became a mentor and angel investor. And that led me to the journey of becoming the founder and CEO of DivInc. And DivInc is essentially, is a startup ecosystem builder focused exclusively for underrepresented entrepreneurs. And we address the lack of access to essential capital resources for underrepresented founders. In 2016, we were founded, and since then, we've helped 63 founders launch or accelerate their business. And we've served, well over 1,000 entrepreneurs with our Women of Color initiative, our alumni program, and accelerator program, which we run twice a year. So
wonderful.
That's my story. I'm based in Austin, Texas. So, happy to be here.
No, it's a pleasure. And I mean, look, you touched on a lot of things. So we're going to dive in a second, but I really appreciate that. And Helen from Austin, Texas, I love it. Too bad we didn't have South by Southwest this past year. I would have been there and been able to spend time with you. Next, we have Barry Gibbons, the general partner of Collab Capital. Barry, it's good to see you, brother.
Yeah, good to be here. Shout out to Natalie for putting this together.
Oh, this is the cool brother on the panel today. He's like, he comes on, got the voice. No, tell us a little bit about yourself, Barry.
I wouldn't go that far. I did look through the chat a little bit. I saw a lot of noobs on there, so I wanted to say yo to the bros. So I started my journey here in Atlanta at Georgia Tech. Got bit by the entrepreneurship bug, and never looked back. Started a shoe company with my roommates. We were just customizing shirts and painting Air Force Ones, and ended up doing a boatload of revenue. Didn't even know to call it revenue at the time. We were just college students blowing money in Miami. But I got bit by the bug that if you do something that people are willing to pay for, like, you can make a living off of it. And so I still went to corporate. I told myself I was going to last 12 months until I figured out company I wanted to start. I lasted 9. I would say, Preston, that was my early retirement. It was in 2009, and they were giving out packages to leave. And I said, y'all gonna pay me to leave? Like, definitely I will leave. Started a real estate tech company that bombed, didn't go too far. It was 2009. Real estate wasn't doing too well. But I learned at least how to start a tech company for a tad bit. And then if I had a claim to fame, I moved back to Atlanta. I was in Durham at the time. Moved back to Atlanta and launched a company called Monsieur. And so I invented an automated bartending machine. So very similar to a Coke Freestyle, except it's spitting out Long Islands and old fashions and martinis and things of that nature. And so raised a little under $5 million, grew to about 17 people and a little over $1 million in revenue, and ended up licensing out that technology to a larger company out in Silicon Valley / Napa Valley. So from there, through that journey, the reason I sold my business was because I couldn't raise enough capital to, do the things that needed to be done. It was a really high-tech hardware company, which means a lot of capital. And yes, we raised a lot of money on paper, but when you look at our peers, they were raising $25-30 million for less.
Good points here. You touched on good points.
So I'm gonna go through as we get to it. And from that experience, myself, my partner Jewel Burks and Justin Dawkins, and several of us in Atlanta, we were just like the next generation of Black entrepreneurs. They need to start with a better foundation. They need to have better access than we had. And so we decided that when we got done with our journeys, we were going to launch something that could be that foundation. And so we launched a advisory service first. We didn't know what it was going to look like, but it ended up being what is now Collab Capital, a $50 million fund for unapologetically for Black innovators. We don't use the word minority. We don't use people of color. We don't use underrepresented. We invest in Black people. And then along with that role as managing partner there, I'm also the managing director for the Techstar Social Impact Program down here in Atlanta.
No, this is great. I mean, shout out to the homie Jewel Burks too. Know her well, and I'm just so thrilled, honestly, to have this conversation with both of you all because you touch on so many different things. With this panel focusing on tech, innovators, and innovation and capital, I think there's a lot of different directions that we can go. But I mean, I think let's start off with this one. What is one of the common misconceptions about the process of seeking and securing capital for your company? Barry, you mentioned about your raise, right? And yet your peers were receiving higher raises. They were getting different types of investments that often we don't get within our company. So let's have a real conversation around that securing capital, particularly as it relates to these investments, because it's not easy. And I know, Preston, you have some perspective on this as well.
Yeah. I'll take it back to kind of the first misconception. And I'll go here because this is what I'm seeing now as I talked to like 70 entrepreneurs last week, right? Like I'm consistently talking to founders. And one of the things I see, particularly in our community, is that a lot of founders are raising to build, right? Like you cannot raise money to build a product. When you walk into an investor's office, especially being Black, it's often said that we need to have, seed level progress to get, friends and family level capital. We need to have Series A progress to get seed capital. And so you're not going to, it's blunt, it's harsh to hear, but you're not going to get a dime if you don't have something, right? Yeah. Like you have to be able to come in with the MVP. There are a lot of no code or low code solutions. Or a lot of times these founders are solo and, especially coming from our HBCUs, many of which don't have technical schools there. And so they don't have the networks to go just find a developer they might've been in class with. Right. And so they're solo founders and they're out seeking $50,000 to build an app. And the best solution for you is to go find a co-founder and give them 20%, vest it right, make sure you do your paperwork right, and have someone come on the team that can build it. And so I would say that that's the number one thing that I see for early stage startups.
Yeah, no, I mean, you touch on so many good points. And, I'm from Atlanta as well. I went to Georgia State University, so very, very familiar. The village right across the street from Georgia Tech.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time there. I'm
sure you did. We all did. No, but I mean, it's interesting because I think this is one of those things. I mean, Preston, you particularly are someone that's fortunate enough to retire from this. So, I mean, walk us through kind of your arc, if you will, of securing capital and leveraging that to make your business thrive.
Yeah, for me, it was a real interesting journey because I didn't set out to go necessarily start something. What I had done was, okay, I'm coming in as an angel investor first time, so I didn't know anything about angel investing, and just learn very quickly by immersing myself in the ecosystem. Barry mentioned the network, right? Not necessarily having a network, but having been in corporate, I was used to being the only Black guy in the room, right? And so walking into the startup ecosystem and being the only Black guy, only Black mentor at Capital Factory Co-working, or the only Black angel investor in a group of 125 angel investors, I'm like, okay, fine. I'm gonna be up in here. I'm gonna learn this, right? Yeah. And then for me, what I was seeing when I became an angel investor, and you put that title under your name on your LinkedIn profile, the deal flow comes to you like in mass, right?
Everybody comes knocking at the door, right? You're the money man.
Right. Yeah. And so what I saw was, at that time in 2014, I was seeing a lot of folks come to me, kind of what Barry said was like, I need this money to go build something, or, I need this money, because I got a great idea. And, for me, it was like, you don't necessarily get funding based on the merit of a great idea. You know what I mean? It's like there are probably 10, 50, 100 people that with the same exact idea, right? And so what it's going to come down to is, sort of like, number one, the business execution, right? It's like, how are you, how is this put together? How are you going to execute? What's the the plan and all that kind of thing. And the other thing too is, what I refer to, and Barry may not disagree, I call it the likability factor, right? Investors, they tell you they invest in the team, right? But you peel that back, and it's really coming down to them being comfortable and confident, right? In your ability that you are the one to execute this. And, and it's just like corporate, right? I mean, you want to get promoted to the upper echelons of the business, but at some point it's beyond the technical capability, right? Yeah. Oh, totally. You getting promoted is more about you navigate. Like navigating, right? And so, I just, say that, don't come in like, oh, my idea is the greatest idea. Look, I've heard your idea 10 or 15 times already. Right? How are you differentiated in this space? Right? Why are you the person I need to invest in? And I need to get comfortable and confident, and that likability factor needs to be like up here. It needs to be differentiated. And so that's, for me, I've had to learn that in terms of, not learn it, but I need to carry that over from the corporate side into building DivInc. It's like, okay, I got to get in here. I can't be coming here talking smack, right? I got to come in here and be able to differentiate, not just from other Black folks. I'm competing against the industry, right? And so we got to come to that game. Yeah.
But I like what you're saying, because this is where I wanted to take the conversation, because both of you all touched on this. And I think this is actually one of the, I would almost call it the worst kept secrets in our community, but one of the realest one, in that someone that might be at their kitchen table right now and they're coming up with the best idea, and they got family or friends or loved ones that may support them, but they don't have an MVP yet, but they have the same expectation that they're due the investment as someone who's been, coded and put together an MVP or has, some type of addressable market and has some revenue and other things of this nature. Natalie knows as well that I often try to put this distinction between, the true startups and those startups that are on kind of a rapid growth trajectory. So I would love for you all to both talk about, and Barry, I guess we'll go to you first with the distinction between the investable startup and the investable company and the entrepreneur versus, sometimes individuals who may need to do a little bit of work, they need to gain a little traction, they need to put an MVP together, they need to have an addressable market or generate revenue. Let's talk about that. That's like one of those real kind of touchy subjects in our community.
Yeah, it's super touchy. And the worst part is when you put people in the uninvestable, they say you're a horrible person and that you don't like them. And it has nothing to do with that. It has nothing to do with them. To your point, it's just some businesses that aren't investable. And so I'm going to be quick, but take it in from two different viewpoints. The first viewpoint is when you think about what's investable, just piggybacking on what we were just talking about like coming in early. And I'm going to focus on kind of that early stage for this context and not get into like Series A, Series B, because that's more focused on metrics. Like they're actually going to be looking at your sales and your data. So we're going to focus on the nuanced early stage. If you come to me as an investor and you come to me and you say, I'm looking for $50,000 to build a prototype, and I give you the same advice that I just gave you, right? Like at that point, as an individual, as a company, you were uninvestable. And I say, hey, but keep me updated. I like the concept. Mm-hmm. Most of the times I will never hear back from a person. Now you take the person to Preston's point about the likability factor. The way you build that likability factor when you're talking to someone brand new is you send me a update the next month that says, hey, I went to Georgia Tech's campus. I walked around. I talked to 10 people trying to find out how to get to developers. I haven't hired anybody yet, but I found 10 candidates. Could you help me? Like, I don't know how to hire a technical person. Could you help me sort through it? And now I'm like, whoa, like this person just like took the initiative, went, maybe we hop on another phone call. And then the next month, it's like, hey, I hired a CTO, or not even a CTO. I want to hire a developer. I don't know how to do that. I want to make sure I do it properly to make sure my paperwork, and like keep that communication going, but show me progress. And it gets to Preston's point about you need to show me that you can execute, especially if you don't have history, if you're a first-time founder, because typically the ones that do get funded early, if I was to go raise for an idea right now, I have a track record. Like I started a company, I raised money, I grew it, I hired people, I sold it, right? Like I can go and say, hey, I have this idea, I'm going to do it again. And I can say, look at my resume. If you've never done that before, you have to prove to me over time that you can do it. And that's one way to do it in that manner. Now, the other angle, and that's what makes a founder investable, to Preston's point, and I did that stage, you're likely going to pivot from whatever idea you put in my inbox the first time. It's probably going to be 4 iterations of that I won't even remember what the first thing was that you came to me with, right? Once you start getting into customer discovery. So it's really, are you investable in this early stage? And you have to prove that to me. And then on the other angle, I think, and this is one of the things we're tackling with Collab, what does investable mean, right? Like, is it venture investable? A lot of founders are chasing venture capital and they don't have venture businesses. They don't have unicorns where you need $50 million to kind of purchase a market type of a business. They're focused on something that can grow to $10, $20 million in revenue. And that is a perfectly good business. But if you're wasting your time and money pitching that to a VC, you're never going to get the capital. And so you have to look at different capital structures of how can I go offer someone a revenue share or something like that will allow them to come into my business and we can grow and scale together in a way that's still economically viable for them as an investor. But that person may not be a venture capitalist, right? And so you also have to, and this is something that I don't fault the entrepreneurs for, because this is all we put in front of them for decades, is go get an angel, go raise a seed round, go Series A, get in venture capital. But we have to get some different vehicles, especially for the Black community, right? Because we don't have that friends and family to get it kicked off. So we have to get new vehicles. And so I think investable, the definition is going to change over time. And then this idea of whether or not a company is investable is going to change as well.
Yeah, I'll add to that, Barry. Right on point. the thing that I say is, investable is that person going to put money in and get a multiple on that return, right? So can someone invest in your company and it's going to grow in some way, shape, or form and create such value, right, that in some way, shape, or form, that investor is going to get a multiple on their return, 2x, 3x, whatever. To Barry's point, on the VC side, it's like they have to drop 20, 30 million, 10, 20, 30 million into a company to try to generate a return of 10, 20x on that, right? And so if your company does not have the capability to scale to that level, then, like we said, that you might be wasting your time talking to that type of VC that has that kind of fund, right? And so you need to understand when you're talking to investors, who you're talking to, right? What do they invest in? Are you creating value for that investor? Whereas they can put in money, it's going to grow, it's going to create value, and in some way, shape, or form, it's going to create that multiple return. Now, how do you get that multiple return?
Yeah,
it's either we were talking about before, getting that exit, right? So is the company going to sell? Is it going to be acquired? Are you going to license? Are you going to, is the company going to merge with someone else? But in some way, shape, or form, 100,000 goes in, maybe 250 comes back, right? Or, 500 comes back, but you have to be able to create value for that investor. The other side of it is, if you're a social enterprise, it's going to be about, yes, they want a return. They do want a return when they invest in a social impact company, but they also want to see impact.
Right.
And so if I want to invest, I want a return, plus I want to see impact, right? On the tech startup side, it's about the multiple on that return. So how do you create that value? And if your business is not going to create that kind of value, the likelihood of you being investable from that segment is probably not going to happen. Now, you do have alternatives from crowdsourcing and things like that, where the expectation for a return may be different. And so it's really understanding, where can you get your financial capital from to support your business and your growth? Because getting that financial capital is about, it's not just survival, right? It's about sustainability and growth. The sustainability and growth. So
it's a good thing that you. No, but you bring up this idea that I wanted to go to next, because we have about 4 minutes here. So let's maybe go through this, because there's maybe one other question I want to ask after this. But in particular, we have men who are likely listening to this, and women for that matter, but just anyone that's viewing this right now and might be thinking, right now, what are some of the growth markets or growth areas that I should be thinking about, and perhaps starting my entrepreneurial journey and or venture? Just some tidbits. What are you guys seeing? What are you thinking? I'll say that in this moment, because we're in this COVID reality, that anything that people can leverage that, utility at home, things that can make your quality of life a little bit better. I think that those are interesting right now. But what's you all's take right now?
There are so many.
Oh,
go ahead, Barry.
You go ahead. You take. I'll jump in after you, because mine's gonna be really quick. So.
I keep mine pretty simple. There's so many areas right now, especially with COVID, as you mentioned. But education, healthcare, financial technology, e-commerce, when you're selling products, media engagement, data, and anything with data. Anything that can optimize efficiencies and provide greater access to stuff, right? And optimize efficiencies, experiences, and transactions. And there's so much happening, and regardless of whatever kind of business that is, I would say leveraging technology is probably essential. Yes. It's not even probably, it is essential.
It is essential in this moment. We're on technology right now.
In order to compete, you have to leverage technology. And please don't say, I'm not a tech person or I'm not a tech company. Figure out a way to leverage technology so that you can compete and scale, not just here in your region, but nationally and globally. Barry, I'll go ahead and clap it up to you.
Yeah, so I have a little bit different take on this. Well, I won't say different, but typically when you ask like what's hot, it's typically like some platform, right? So where it's like VR or digital currencies, right? And say what's going to be in the next 50 years, where are we going to be? I like to like bring it a little closer to home. You know, seeing that those ideas typically require, you know, someone that has like this, that's leveraging and creating a new type of technology, right? And for me, and that is something that I know that we can, a place that we play in, but for me, I see a lot of opportunity, especially for the Black entrepreneurs that may not come from the tech space, that may not be technical, is look inside of your industry. There have been so many nascent industries that have not been disrupted. We have a founder here,
Barry,
George.
Give me a specific example though. So
it's a company here called Lease Query, started by a Black guy named George, and he built a platform that made it easier for people to track their leasing equipment. Right? Like he's an accountant. He was dealing with it forever. Like, how do you move this stuff? How do you tax it right? How do you get depreciation? Like these things that go in, and they were still using Excel sheets, right? How do you go into a place where you're good and you know it and you're an expert and you just need to apply the technology that already exists to make it more efficient? Because now you can go in and sell it and say, I'm going to save you 2 people, 50 hours a week. And now you don't mind paying me $1,000 a month for this service. And those are the places where Black people really need to go in. And you also don't need a super high. You can go find a web developer on any corner. You can go find a mobile app developer. You don't need somebody that's doing computer vision, VR, like with 2 PhDs. Like these are people you can find like on any, you go get 2 interns from a college campus and get it built, right?
Simple. Yeah. And I was saying, you know, basically optimize efficiencies, optimize experiences, optimize transactions. It does not rocket science type stuff. And funny, the example you used, Barry, when you said that, I thought about Jules' first business, right? Part Pick,
yeah.
Part Pick was like, you know, it was brilliant, though, right? But it was like, how do you, you know, automate that whole process of tracking, you know, parts for large manufacturers, whatever? And people are like, you know, what's going on there? But
Part Pick needed like 3 PhDs, though.
Yeah.
Part Pick was pretty high tech. They needed some really smart.
No, but to that point though, that's what I wanted to end on. And I know that we got to jump off on this. So if we could be really quick on this, you said that with Part Pick and or in particular, any of these tech companies, oftentimes you need these, you know, engineers, people who have a deep knowledge of coding, people who have analytical minds. Talk about the importance of accelerators and incubators. I'm big on those. I mean, when I was in the Obama administration at SBA, we supported, you know, the expansion of the accelerators and incubators at the moment because it was still a kind of a new phenomenon that was taking shape. And you had mentioned, Barry, in particular, Techstars, who I'm a big fan of. So, you know, share a little bit about the importance of that.
Yeah. They're extremely competitive to get in. But once you can get in, I mean, the network opens up immediately, right? You know, whether it's Techstars, 500 Startups, YC, those are the big ones. But even getting beyond the bigger kind of global ones, they're really good resources that are kind of incubators and accelerators in your cities that you can look up. Yeah. But I will say all of them do not provide so I would say definitely look at the people that are running it and make sure they have the experience.
Yes.
There are a lot of people where their first piece of experience is starting that incubator, right? Like those aren't the ones you want to go to, right? Like you want to go to somewhere where they have a background like Preston has. They know where you know that he can give you something in the end of it. Make sure that they have it spelled out what you should expect coming out of it, especially if they're ones that you have to pay for, right? Because you're paying your hard-earned money. hard-earned money. But yes, if you're an early stage, first-time entrepreneur, it's a very easy, effective, and efficient way to learn and avoid some of the really early stage traps. Yeah. Now, like I said, the YCs and the Techstars, you're pretty much further along typically by the time you get to them. But once you do, that's why they're called accelerators, right? Because they're going to put you in places, get you contracts, help you hone your business model and get ready to help you scale. But those things are invaluable. We just launched one at Collab through our studio called Prep School, where we have 8 weeks, and each week gives you a deliverable. 1 week's going to give you a data room. 1 week's, going to give you a hiring plan, and you're going to leave with 8 pieces of intelligence that you're going to need, like tangible things that you're going to need in order to move forward in your journey.
Well, this is great, brothers. This is amazing. I mean, this conversation is so, it fills me. We had an honest conversation. I mean, we talked about securing capital. We talked about the investment, the idea of the investable bank, the startups and entrepreneurial ventures, as opposed to those that need to do a little bit more on and get on that grind. Look, one thing I like to leave is you see behind me, the hustle is sold separately for any and all of you all who are trying to do it. You got to have that hustle. So once again, Natalie, we really do thank you for this. This is, we need more of this. So really pleased with today, and check us out.
Awesome panel, guys. Thank you so much, Chris.